ये करना है नहीं ठीक है ए मैंने कर दिया अब ए पे रुके हाँ
Okay, we are live.
We are live?
Yeah.
Great. So, hello, and I welcome all of you to the first edition of the Book Bakers Literature Festival. My name is Moitri Bhaduri, and I will be the moderator for this session, which is a very interesting one, titled Biographies or Hagiographies, How Does One Maintain a Balance? And to take us through this session, I have a very esteemed panel of guests today. So I'll just introduce them one by one. I would like to start with Ms. Neelam Kumar, who actually needs no introduction, but still I'll go ahead and introduce her. A best-selling author, TEDx speaker, life skills coach, Ms. Neelam Kumar wears many hats. She has bravely battled cancer twice. Having fought it at such close range, she has made it her life's mission to give back to society through her written and spoken words. Ms. Kumar has written 9 books, including one with the legendary Khushwant Singh, two books funded by Mr. Ratan Tata and Mr. Amitabh Bachchan. Her biggest bestsellers till date have been To Cancer with Love, My Journey of Joy, and the biography of actor Manisha Koirala's book, Heat, which was published by Penguin. Ms. Kumar has received countless awards for her contribution to writing, so I'm not going to state them here. It is going to take half an hour. So welcome, ma'am. Next, I would move on to Mr. Ashwini Bhatnagar. And yes, ma'am, Neelam ma'am is joining us from Mumbai. I'm also in Mumbai. Next, our next speaker is Mr. Ashwini Bhatnagar, who joins us from Noida. Once again, like, you know, for everyone, I'm going to say they need no introduction, but I'll still go ahead and introduce them. So Mr. Bhatnagar is a veteran journalist, a best-selling author, and an acclaimed documentary filmmaker. He has been a political editor and analyst for the Times of India and the Tribune, among others. He has written the biographies of many well-known personalities that include Infosys co-founder Narayan Murthy, Liberty Shoe founder P.D. Gupta, and American evangelist Nick Vujicic. His latest books, published through the Book Bakers, include The Lotus Years, Political Life in India in the Time of Rajiv Gandhi, published by Hachette, and actress Meena Kumari's biography. He is working on several books now, which includes a biography on politician Farooq Abdullah as well. Mr. Bhatnagar has written a whopping 13 books. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
I move on to Mr. Nalin Verma, once again a very esteemed panelist. He joins us from Jalandhar. Mr. Verma, once again, is a veteran journalist, a best-selling author, and renowned professor at the lovely Professional University in Jalandhar, Punjab. Mr. Verma has worked at senior editorial positions in The Telegraph, The Statesman, and the Hindustan Times, and still regularly contributes to The Wire, The Frontline Hindu, The Telegraph, etc. He has written extensively on society, politics, and governance in Bihar. He has written 2 books, all very well known. Lalu Prasad Yadav's much acclaimed biography titled Gopalganj to Raisina Road and The Greatest Folk Tales of Bihar. Welcome, Mr. Verma.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now I move on to Dr. SAAD S Khan, who joins us all the way from Lahore, Pakistan. Very well known in the circles, Dr. Khan is a political scientist and historian. He has written prolifically on political Islam, Middle Eastern politics, history of military music, and more. He has held prestigious positions at the National School of Public Policy in Pakistan. Dr. Khan has 5 books to his credit, including Reasserting International Islam When Military Wages, Peace and Service Are Highest Honor. He will debut in the biography writing this year with his latest book on Ms Jinnah, titled Rati Jinnah, the Woman Who Refused to Be a Slave, being published by Penguin, again through Book Bakers. And welcome, Mr. Khan.
Thank you.
And now I move on to our youngest panelist here today, Ms. Namrata Gupta Khan, who joins us from Mumbai. Hi, Namrata.
Hi. Hi.
So Namrata is a young achiever. She started working when she was only 16. After 12 years in the telecom industry, she floated her own event management firm. Namrata loves giving back to the society and has always been involved in numerous social service activities. Her writing dream was fulfilled when her first book was published by Penguin through the book Bakers, titled A Dream I Lived Alone. This book is a biography of the revered Indian classical musician Padma Vibhushan, Ustad Ghulam Mustafa Hasab, who is also Namrata's father-in-law. Namrata is a recipient of the Global Women's Achievement Award 2019. So welcome, Namrata.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, all.
Great. Hi, everyone again. So now, without wasting more time, I will just move on to the topic for today. Biography or hagiographies, how does one maintain a balance? So as we all know, biography is an account of someone's life written by someone else. But hagiography, on the other hand, is a biography that treats its subject with unnecessary and excessive adulation. So I feel it can be quite a challenge to maintain a balance, especially if you're writing the biography of somebody who is still alive. So before we move on to an overall discussion on each one of your books, I would just like an opening remark from each of our panelists as to, do you really think that it is possible to maintain a balance between biography and hagiography? So I would start with Neelam ma'am, your thoughts quickly maybe.
Thank you, Matri. It is difficult, yeah, when you are writing about somebody who is alive. And I will talk about my book with on Manisha Koirala, who is a very popular, very beautiful actress. And I know her, I have been knowing her for a long time. So writing a book up close and personal, you have to be very, very objective, because biography is a story of somebody's life without any embellishments, what's and all. Whereas hagiography, or a hagiography, as it is also pronounced, is raising that person to the level of a saint and adding all the trimmings which are largely untrue. So that was my goal statement, not to make the reader starstruck, but to give a real account of the person behind the struggle that she went through.
Great, thank you. Mr. Bhatnagar, your thoughts on, is it really possible to maintain a balance? Yeah.
Sorry?
No, yeah, I was just repeating the question. Please go on.
Writing a biography is as easy or difficult as writing any other book, even if you're writing fiction, because you have to stick to the basic character that you are, who is the main hero of your book. And being a journalist, I find writing biographies, I never get caught in this whole thing about elevating somebody or focusing too much on the dark side of somebody's thing. The reason is very simple. You stick to facts. You don't go by what others think. And very importantly, when you are presenting facts, you don't get involved yourself and start judging those facts as per your own perspective. Just lay down the facts, let the reader decide and take a call on what he thinks about the particular person. So factual narration of events of a person's life is a must for a biography. The problem happens when you start narrating a person's life and also taking a whole lot of other things which are semi-factual, or they are associated with the person because of certain perceptions others have of that particular celebrity or a well-known person. So I think a training in journalism, and I know Neelam has been to a journalism school early on in her career, and she completely appreciates that fact. and Nalin too is a veteran colleague from my journalism days. But writing a biography, I think ultimately is a journalist calling, because only he can present the fact and narrate them in a way that not only make it interesting, engrossing, and helps the reader in appreciating the gamut of the whole gamut of work that the person at the center of the biography has put in through his life. It's not about pulling down somebody or raising somebody up to the highest level. I'll give you a very small example. Again, for a moment, just assume that Lord Ram was real. I feel that the best ever biography written ever was Balmiki's Ramayana. Because
Mr. Bhatt, yeah, sorry, please go ahead.
Because if you look at the same characters there, when Valmiki talks of Ram, he talks of Raja Ram, Dashrath Putra Ram, and ultimately there are a whole lot of references in the Ramayana where Ram is shown as somebody who's like any other human being. He gets desperate, he gets frustrated, he gets angry, he gets upset. He's at times there's treachery, he's cheated, etc. And how he rises out of it.
Sorry, Mr. Bhatnagar, on that note, I'll come back to you quickly. I just take the opening remarks on the topic from the others, because Raman is a very interesting topic, and we can go on and on that. But thank you so much for your views on that. So quickly, over to Mr. Verma. Your thoughts on, is it really possible to maintain a balance?
See, Matrei, to me, hagiography, biography, approved biography, or autobiography, they are four distinct things. And as a writer, I respect all these genres. They have their relevance. See, hagiography was written on the saints by their disciples. Like Vivekananda wrote on the Ramakrishna, my master. And it was based on the experience that Vivekananda had with his master, the Ramakrishna was. So a journalist, a person who have limitations, could not have written Ramakrishna's biography unless they had someone had the experience of living that life with him. Like, you know, Nanaka Janmsati. It was written by his disciples who had the experience, live life with the Nanaka. So those characters, only hagiography could have been written. Even Khushwant Singh in the history of Sikh has referred them as a source book. So hagiography worked as a source book and written on the saint, the inspired seers who have come, and only those people who have lived the life with him, and they themselves are inspired seers, they could have written that. That is a different thing. Another, when it comes to the biography are also two types. One approved biography and one biography which you write, Mr. Bhatnagar said very factually with your own perspective. That is also a respectful work and hard work to do. That is a good thing. We journalists do that. At the same time, the character, you know, he has every right to tell the story the way he wants to be told. There comes the philosophy of the approved biography or the autobiography. See, big leaders, political leaders who have political careers, they have lakhs and thousands of their followers who want their leader to tell their story the way they want to be told. Then there comes the autobiography or approved biography. And obviously, as a journalist, as writers, we write our biography, and that is also a respectful work to do in our own perspective. We do the things and make the people present, be it the film star or someone else, the way we feel and find the facts correct. This is my perspective of the biography. Are you hearing me?
Now moving to Dr. Khan. Do you? Yes, sir.
Okay. So, okay. Can you hear me all?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay, right.
Did you hear me?
So,
Did you hear me?
okay. So my idea is once A psychologist friend of mine was saying that you guys, every human being lives just one life. And we, the psychologists, live multiple lives, because whenever we talk to a subject, we start living their life. I mean, something like psychotherapy sessions or something. Now, as far as I'm concerned, it's the same with historian. You live multiple lives, because when you start studying a subject, you start reliving his or her life. You start understanding his or her own perspective, why he or she did something that he did. So, or she did in my case, because my subject is a woman. So I think it's very difficult to be very objective, not only for the living persons, but also for the persons who are adulated in the country. Even the persons are dead, like Jinnah and his family. So saying something that may not go well with the readership, but still wanting to say that thing, would be a very tight rope to walk upon, unless, I mean, someone who is decidedly a villain. For example, writing a biography of Hitler, and very few people in the present day world would say that Nazism is a good thing, then it's easy. But if you start writing even on a robber, like say Robin Hood or the dacoit queen in India, and then you feel why she did what she did, then it becomes very difficult. So as Mr. Bhatnagar said, the role of the biographer is to stick to the facts and let the people, the readers, draw the conclusions therefrom.
Thank
Yeah,
you for your
that's it.
input, Dr. Khan. I now move on to Namrata. Namrata, your thoughts on that? Is it possible to maintain a balance?
Yeah. See, I feel I'll just make it a little short. I feel that hagiography is a biography of a saint, and the action has a good reason. What good deeds they have done is what we mention in a hagiography. But in a biography, it is more real. It is true to the reality as possible. A biography represents much truer story and a character than a hagiography, is what I feel. So, like a godly person, if I like, as Dr. Saad and Ms. Neelam Kumar said that Ramayan or any person where they have a huge followers, so they have all good deeds, they are like saints. So that is when you mention as a hagiography. But in biography, you can write the good things, the bad things. It's about a real person. Let the person decide, the reader decide whether he wants to make the biography, the person who he has read about, is to be followed or not. But the difference is the hagiography you write is about a saint, and a biography can be written on any normal person or someone who has achieved in life.
Okay, great. Thank you. Super.
Yeah.
So now I would just like to go back to Neela ma'am and ask you that since you have written the biography of such a popular star, Manisha Koirala, who was really, I mean, among the top heroines in her heydays. So how difficult was it to write something like that? I mean, you're interacting with her, and you said she's your friend. So how difficult was it? And did you really have a list of things not to do when you were writing? How did you go about it?
Okay, the last question first. Yeah, I had a don't in my head not to turn it into a hagiography. Then coming back, how difficult was it? Moitre, it was difficult to maintain the balance. I had to struggle between being objective and over-identification. Objective because I did not want the reader to get starstruck. That was not the purpose of the book. And over-identify, the name of the book, by the way, is Healed. How cancer gave me a new life. So over-identification, because I myself have been a survivor twice over. So, and I had also just published my bestseller, To Cancer with Love, My Journey of Joy, from Hay House. And that was already riding the charts because I had created an alter ego called Carol, who would kick Neelam whenever she became pessimistic or negative. And that's why that book worked. But I could not follow the same formula in this. So over-identification. I remember one day Manisha ji and I, we were, sitting in her drawing room, and we started talking about, how much pain there was. And, after I completed the book, each of us went to our checkups again, because, it's very difficult to reliving the same pain, going through the same experiences. But to her credit, I will tell you, she was always telling me, please make it real. I do not want, something that turns me into a heroine. So my goal sentence, first, my goal sentence was, why am I writing this book? I'm writing it to help other people who are struggling with it. And then how will I depict her? I will depict her as a very real person who has gone through the struggles and come out triumphant. Now, Moitri, to expand these goal sentences, I used two methods. One was I used a lot of humor, and the second was that I used huge doses of reality. Humor, like there's a chapter how Bollywood came to my rescue. So she's lying in a hospital bed in New York, and she's pressing the button for the nurse to come, and the nurse is not coming. So then she works on a ploy. And when the nurse came, she said, have you ever seen Bollywood movies? And the nurse said, oh, you mean in which they dance and sing, the musicals? And she said, yes, I'm a big star there. I've done 80 films. And after that, she could see the veil of admiration. And then after that, she got the TV remote and the heated blankets more often, which was what she wanted. And reality, because I have shown her in pain, and when the metal strips are cut off from her abdomen, I have shown her screaming. I have shown her flinching with pain, not as a superstar as they show on the screen. They show that, these people are super women and supermen. So I think that is what endeared her to the audience, to the readers. And that's why Penguin tells me it's a huge bestseller.
Wonderful, ma'am. I mean, I can only imagine what it must have been like. So kudos to you on that. Now, my next question would be to Mr. Bhatnagar. Mr. Bhatnagar, I would like to understand your take on biographies, because you have written about celebrities and, people from all walks of life. So you've written about politicians, film stars, entrepreneurs, evangelists. So how different was your experience, writing, say, for example, from a politician to an evangelist? And also, another thing you mentioned, in your opening remark was that while writing a biography, we try to stick to facts. If we are only listing facts, will that, how can we make that interesting? So I would like to hear that also from you, because as readers, when we are reading a biography, we are not just looking for facts. We are looking for facts. We are also looking for the events, in the person's life. So how do you bring that to life?
When one is writing a biography, then facts are the bedrock on which you build your narrative. But the narrative is the most important thing. How do you go about telling this story? How do you engage your reader with the person you're writing about? So there are various devices you would like to use depending on what sort of person you're writing about. For example, when I was writing about Narayana Murthy, the information on him is very, very sketchy. Personal information on him is very sketchy. And access is virtually not there. So what happens is that you then rely on sort of a lot of corporate stuff that is handed out, and also on the technical aspect of how the business grew, etc., etc. On the other hand, it was a third person view of that, because I did not have that intimate association with Narayana Murthy. The second biography I wrote was about P.D. Gupta, who was the Liberty founder of Liberty Shoes. He had died, and his family wanted us to write a biography on their founder. Now the problem was that there were too many people involved in this, so everybody had a version of the man, and there were certain versions about which there was conflict. One part of the family wanted to say, yes, this is the right way. This is how the incident happened. The other part of the family wanted to be shown in another way. So that has to be resolved. Similarly, when you're writing about Meena Kumari, now there are two biographies of Meena Kumari, one by Vinod Mehta and the other by Mohan. Now, Vinod Mehta keeps referring to Meena Kumari as my heroine. So it is more of a fanboyish biography of Meena Kumari as an actress and as a person. On the other hand, Mohan Deep writes about Meena Kumari more as somebody he is really going out and attacking. It is called scandalously. So he has picked out all the areas of her life which were somehow construed as scandalous and put them together. So when we were writing and talking about these things to, for example, Meena Kumari's nephews and members of the family, they had very different opinions about very different things. So consciously, and when I came to Rajiv Gandhi, now this was something which I had experienced firsthand as a political reporter, as somebody who has known Rajiv Gandhi from the day he joined politics to the day he died, somebody who was very familiar with the whole political setup during the decade 1980 to 1990. So the devices of storytelling were very, very different. For example, while I was writing Meena Kumari, I was concentrating on more on bringing out the human aspect of Meena Kumari's life more than her career as a heroine, because most of it is known, very well known. Similarly, when I was writing about Narayan Murthy, I was more interested in that the entrepreneurship, that the spirit of the seed of entrepreneurship and how it germinated, how it grew, and what makes him so different from anybody else. So that was the focus. When I was writing about Rajiv Gandhi evokes all sorts of reactions. Most people do not like him. They think of Baba Log during his lifetime also. There's a lot of talk about Rajiv Gandhi being, like we say today, Pappu, Baba Log, all that stuff. And he was not very successful as a political person also. He lost the election. He had a major crisis while he was the prime minister midterm. But Rajiv Gandhi had other aspects of his life. So when I was writing Rajiv Gandhi, I was narrating it more as the history, the contemporary history of that era. So the focus, the pivot was Rajiv Gandhi, but I was not looking at everything from his point of view alone. There were other people, Vishwanath Pratap, etc., etc. So it was a 360 degree view of the political life in India when Rajiv Gandhi was the prime minister. Right. So it is a biography, but it is also a narration of events which have shaped much of India that we know today.
Great. So while still on political biographies, I would like to ask Mr. Narendra Verma as to why did you choose Lalu Prasad Yadav? I mean, of course, there are many politicians from the state itself, and also because state of Bihar itself, and also because it was more of an autobiography. So how difficult was it, to maintain a balance when you wrote on Lalu Prasad Yadav? And were you able to, do you think that you were able to write a critical biography?
See, Maitreyi, it was not I who decided to write on Lalu Prasad Yadav. In fact, his men, the people around, he wanted to write a biography, his story, the way he wanted to tell it. He had the panel of many biographers, writers were offering to write. Fortunately, he picked me up, maybe because I belong to the same area. I had worked there as a journalist for 30 long years. I knew him because when he was an MLA and he had not become so big, so tall. So somehow he selected me to write his autobiography. See, Lalu Prasad is such a person who has been written about. Many people know him. Every day he is written about. But so far, it is a first book which tells the way he wanted it to be told. Okay, and he selected me to do it. My objectivity was that I should not bring myself to in that book. I had to tell the story the way Lalu Prasad wanted to tell it. And my objectivity was I should not let my impulses, my thinking to go into that book. And he fortunately came out his own story. He's a colorful person, and he came out with his own story, his childhood story. He was lapped up by his supporters and all the old crazy stories that he had. He was very, I feel that he was very honest in admitting all these things. He has made many confessions in that book, which no politician today, career politician, usually they don't make. But he has made many confessions in the book about his arrogance, about his haughtiness, about his behavior, about his conduct also. He has stated many things. So that way I found the book in a way unique in the sense that it is the first book which Lalu Prasad tells his own story. And see, he has lakhs and thousands of supporters and critics also. So it was read a lot because his supporters wanted to lap it up because they wanted the story to be told by their icon, who Lalu Prasad is. Their opponents wanted also to read what he's telling on us, things like that. He's not an individual, he's a political leader. And he has a view on every politician from Narendra Modi ji to Indira Gandhi and to everyone. So this is how this book happened, you know. I don't describe myself as a very professional biographer, but it just happened to me that he selected me to write that biography and it came out well. That is, I'm lucky for that. That's all. And secondly, when I observed him, that I will write later on. Lalu Prasad has two aspects. One aspect is known to all because he's a flamboyant person and he keeps on speaking in his own way. But in the core of that is not there in the book. I found that he is a very, very generous, nice human being, which is not very visible from the persona that he has. But he's a very soft-hearted, very genuine, very gentle person, very nice-hearted person, generous person individually. This I have found, but this, if at all I get the opportunity to write his biography the way Mr. Nagar has written on many things, then I may think of writing that aspect. But this is the thing that I have done. That's all, Maitreyi, for this particular question.
Great. So I understand that it is very difficult, especially if you're asked to write an autobiography of a politician. I think sometimes some of us might need bodyguards when we write about politicians. So thank you for your inputs, Mr. Verma. Now moving on to Dr. Khan. Dr. Khan, I have a similar question for you, like what I asked to Mr. Nalin Verma, as to why Mrs. Jinnah? I mean, why did you choose to write on Mrs. Jinnah? And also, especially, she passed away before Pakistan was created. Do you think she had any influence over the creation, of the country of Pakistan? And how tough was your research, when you were writing, on Mrs. Jinnah? Because you've read so much about Mr. Jinnah, but this is something different. So, would like your views on that.
Yeah, the first thing why I chose Mrs. Jinnah, the very reason that you mentioned, that she is one of the most underexplored personalities, at least in Pakistan, where everybody knows her, that she was Jinnah's wife, but nothing beyond. I mean, how many sisters and brothers did she have? What were her political views? Why did she marry Jinnah in the first place, etc., etc. So when Pakistan's platinum jubilee celebrations, that was 2007 60th anniversary, were taking place, I was asked to select leader of the freedom movement in an international conference held in Islamabad. And incidentally, I came across a few facts about her, and then I presented a paper, and it generated so much interest that I decided to write a book about her. So why did I choose her exactly? I mean, even in that international conference, was that she was one of the persons who could be celebrated on both sides of the border. Because whenever we talk about freedom movement leaders, so either they were pro-Pakistan or pro-United India, right? So depending on which side of the political border you are positively expected, even as a scholar, to take side of one set of freedom movement leaders and to be, quote unquote, opponent of the other view about the freedom movement. So she was one person whom Gandhiji had a very high opinion about. Jinnah loved her because he was her husband. And Gandhiji, Mahatma Gandhi, very known fact about him, that he adored her. And even Pandit Motilal ji had a very, very good and positive opinion about her. So I thought that in the scenario, in the milieu between Pakistan and India, every third or fifth or sixth year we have something like Pulwama or Uri incident or the Mumbai attacks. She is one of the persons that can be that can be celebrated on both sides of the divide. Now the difficulties, of course, the same thing that Mr. Bhatnagar mentioned, extreme paucity about material on her. So if
Yes.
we, for example, read We Nehrus by Krishna Huti Singh, Jawaharlal Nehru's sister, you read the whole book and then you find only 3 sentences about her. But again, those 3 sentences were like pearl from the ocean floor. You know, the pearl diving was a profession in the Middle East where people would dive into the ocean, and that would be a pearl. Okay, the Nehru family thought this way about her. So such a paucity of information, that was the biggest challenge. And another thing, the same thing probably all biographers feel, like Bhatnagar said, that everybody has a different view in the family about her. And everybody thinks in her descendants that our view is the correct view and that should be reflected in the book. And sifting out what must have been the actual fact without mixing it with biases and opinions and everything is itself a challenge. And the last thing I would like to say, again, taking Mr. Bhatnagar's point, that this part of history, when Jinnah was an ambassador of Hindu Muslim unity and he didn't want a separate country, and Mrs. Jinnah didn't want a separate country, this is something that is blacked out from history of Pakistan. So Mrs. Jinnah being the pivot, I also took a 360-degree view. That means that I was talking about the history of that period when Mrs. Jinnah was very influential on Jinnah. So it was with her as the pivot, but you know the history in general. So that was something that I could have done only with an adored person being the focus. And the last thing, did she have an impact on the creation of Pakistan? Yes. Many people say that Pakistan would, had there been no Jinnah, there wouldn't have been any Pakistan. But my point of view is that had there been no Mrs. Jinnah, there wouldn't have been any Pakistan. And why is that so? I would like you all to read the book because I don't want to divulge it now. Thank you. That's all.
This is definitely one book I am looking forward to reading. And I think one thing that is coming across by talking to all of you is that managing expectations while writing a biography, especially managing expectations from family and friends of the person, is quite a challenge, and the society at large. So now, moving on from political biographies to biographies of film stars, I would like to ask Namrata the next question, because you have written, something about the music industry. So, what inspired you to write a book on the revered Ustad Ghulam Mustafa Khan Sahab? And I'm sure you faced many challenges while writing this. And I ask this especially to you, not as a biographer, but because, he's your family member, he's your father-in-law. So how difficult was it, or how easy was it to write it, manage expectations and keep it objective?
Firstly, Ustad Ghulam Mustafa Khan Sahab, who's my father-in-law, he's a man of less words. He hardly talks about his work. He boasts about his work. He does not like. So when I got married, I mean, I'm just trying to give you an introduction about me, that I belong from a Hindu family, and I got married to a guy who was a Muslim and from a musical family. I belong to a background where my father is a lawyer, my brother is a lawyer. I used to work in a corporate company. So definitely there is a huge culture, tradition, challenge. So when I came in this family, everything was very strange and different for me. Like I used to see my father-in-law doing riyaz in the night at 12 o'clock, in the night at 2 o'clock, in the morning
Lucky
at
you,
6
I
o'clock.
tell you.
Yeah. So I used to find it very different, that he, at this time where people are sleeping, he used to do riyaz. And my father-in-law is currently 89. So I wrote this book like 2 years back. So he was 87. So I started noticing him, you know, small things, the way he talks, the way he used to teach his students. So there are students like Lata Mangeshkar, Asha Bhosle, Sonu Nigam, Shan, A.R. Rahman. They all learn music from my father-in-law. And there are many more to be mentioned, but it's a long list. So I used to feel that he's very different from the others. So I started jotting down small things about him in my diary without even letting him know. One fine day, I called him in my room at around 2 o'clock after his prayers, and I told him that I want to know certain questions I have. Could you answer me those? So he's like, "Tu kya mere upar kitab likh rahi hai?" So I didn't wanted him to know that, because I thought the minute I will tell him that, he'll get conscious and he will not open up, because he's a very reserved person. He doesn't like talking about his challenges and struggle. I said, "Yeah, no, I'm just I wanted to know because I'm a little curious." So he said, "But you promised me that if you're going to write a book on me, you are going to discuss with me, share it with me, and you will only write those things what I want you to write, because I don't want to hurt people." During my journey, there were a lot of people who, who are my friends turned into enemies. So I don't want you to mention their names because I don't want to hurt anybody. So I said, okay, fine. So then, since he was a renowned Hindustani classical music artist and he was a guru, I thought that his story needs to be penned down. So then I told him that, "Papa, I want to write a story on your life." So he's like, "Okay, but then you tell me, what are you writing?" So the book was about 1 lakh plus words, with all his struggle and all his music politics. I had to cut down to 60,000 words. He wanted me to cut down more, because he's like, "No, you cannot mention these names." Like in, film industry, there are a lot of politics and competitions in any profession, not in music, but I think in other professions also. But he told me that you have to delete all this, because there are a lot of people who are my friends, are not my friends, but they don't know that I know that they are not my friends. So you please be careful with that.
That's so wonderful. Very valid point.
So he is, more like a sane person, I felt. And then I was like literally in tears. And I said, how a person can be so, sober and so naive. So I said, okay, Papa, I will write only things what you want to mention. So there was a question where I was very curious to know. I said, "Papa, how many girlfriends did you have?" So he got angry. He's like, "What are you talking to me?" I said, "No, like, you are in music industry and you were so popular and so talented. I'm sure you must be having huge fan following for girls." He's like, "I did have beta, but my passion for music was so much that मुझे लड़कियां दिखी नहीं, मुझे सिर्फ गाना बजाना दिखता था. तो मेरा फोकस सिर्फ म्यूजिक था. लड़कियां होती भी होंगी, but मेरा नजर वहां नहीं जाता था." So, that passion he had, he used to do riyaz for 16 hours. He has done riyaz on a graveyard. He used to not have time at home, so he used to go to a graveyard where he used to stay. Uske upar unhone तानपुरा एक bamboo पे बनाकर बांस पे strings लगा के used to do riyaz on that. So so when recently my husband had taken him to that same place, and he said, "Papa, आप यहाँ पर रियाज कैसे करते थे ये जगह पे, ग्रेवयार्ड पे?" तो बोले, "मुझे अब सोच के डर लगता है, पता नहीं, मैं तब शायद मेरा जुनून मुझे लेकर जाता था, वो गाना सिखाने के लिए मैं जाता था." तो so he started singing from the age of 4 to 89, and it was a big challenge because there was one relation of father-in-law. Obviously there was a difference of age, so there are a lot of questions which you want to ask and you can't ask, but I thought, chal do thappad hi kha lungi, but I will ask him because I have to be honest to my biography. It took me 5 years to write his book because he was, as I told you, man of less words. Every day I used to write 1 page, and that took me 5 years, but I made sure that I write everything. So somehow I tried to do justice to the book, because whoever has read the book, like, in America and Pakistan, he has got a huge fan following out of India though. So they said that you have written exactly the book how he represents himself. And let's see now next what I do. I'm planning to write another biography, but I cannot mention the name of the artist. But hopefully, yes, I hope that also turns out to be something good.
All the very best. So quickly, I'll just, so thanks for the, insights, Namrata. And really, I mean, I think we would need volumes of books probably to learn about Ustadji. So maybe one book also wouldn't suffice. So,
very true. Very true.
So we are, I think, already, over time, but I'll just quickly check, for some questions. There are lots of questions and comments on Facebook. So Okay, so I think we have taken most of these questions, like Sharmishta says, how difficult was it to write the biography of a celebrity, and how to control. Rasika writes, readers look for that fact which makes the personality what he or she can be. One reason to read biographies. So Suhail asks, again, this also we have covered, how difficult it is to write the biography of a deceased person and compare it. Okay, how difficult is it to write the biography of a deceased person in comparison to a living one? So it's open to any one of you, including me. But I just keep it open to the panel. Anybody wants to take that?
It's always better
Living
to
person.
it's always better to write a biography of a person who is no more in this world, because you then don't have to balance out a whole lot of stuff. What happens is that whenever you're writing a bio of a person who's already alive, then that there's expectation both from the publisher as well as from the person about whom you are writing a book, that you would exactly see things as he sees them or she sees them. Now that becomes an issue, because I believe there's a story to be told, and that story has to be told as objectively as possible. So one cannot really get into that. So one would really want something which is like one biography I was reading recently. It is in 4 volumes. It is on Lyndon Johnson, and it is written by Robert Caro. 4 volumes, and the U.S. ex-president. It's such a detailed biography. It is really wonderful. And the other thing, Irving Stone's biographies, biographical novels, which he calls as biographical novels on Sigmund Freud or Michelangelo, so many other people. Those are beautiful pieces of history. You get to understand the person, the artist, the achiever. The basic idea of writing a biography is that you get to understand what that achiever was, rather than getting what how scandalous he was, or what he did or what he did not do. A person distinguished, why we write a biography about somebody, because that person has distinguished himself in a particular area of activity. So how did he get to
On
the
the contrary, again, very true. But on the contrary, Mr. Bhatnagar, it can also be difficult sometimes to get information on a person who is not alive. Like Dr. Khan was mentioning about Mrs. Jinnah. I have, I'm in the process of writing a biography of somebody who was supposedly India's first female serial killer, or maybe the world's first serial killer, which is going to be published soon via book bakers. So the challenge I faced was the paucity of information there. So had to do a lot of research. But then I felt that, getting information probably on somebody who's alive would be simpler. But then again, there are challenges in doing both. Dr. Khan, you were saying something?
Yeah, I think I agree with Mr. Bhatnagar that it is less challenging to write on somebody who has died. But my understanding would be that if the biography is written within the first 5 to 10 years of the death, then everybody who has known him could be interviewed, and he would be even remembering the interactions with the subject. So writing a biography after 100 years, when there is no direct contact with anybody who has known him or her subject, is a bit more complicated.
Right. True.
Any other comments from Neelam ma'am, Namrata, Mr. Verma?
No.
Yeah, see, writing the biography for the people, you must keep in mind that be a great person, or Jawaharlal Nehru, who have made impact on their societies and the cultures and the politics, and for whom the people are waiting for to listen. If you write something on that in a well-researched manner, then the people are waiting for that to read, because there are many aspects which through your intellectual inquiry you can bring out many things about a great person. But you can't like a biography after the death about the person who has not made an impact in the society, or for which the people are not waiting for. This is what I have.
Great. On that note, I would like to end this session, and thank you all once again for joining and making this such an interactive session. I wish we had more time, but Thank you, book bakers. Thank you, Suhail Mathur, Mr. Sanjeev Mathur, and Nidhi, and everyone at the book bakers for giving us, this esteemed panel. And look forward to talking to all of you again. And don't forget to, watch all the other sessions. So thank you and bye.
Thank
Bye,
you.
bye,
Bye-bye.
bye, all of you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, you all
Bye,
take
all
care.
of you.
Bye, bye.
Bye.
Bye.